MyBatis life cycle and scope in MyBatis. Here you can see MyBatis life cycle and scope. It is very important to understand the various scope and life cycle classes. Using them incorrectly can cause severe concurrency problems. Dependency injection frameworks can create thread-safe transactional SQL sessions and mappers and inject them directly into your bean, so you can just forget about their life cycle. You may want to have a look at MyBatis Spring or MyBatis Goose sub-project to know more about using MyBatis with DI frameworks. Here you can see MyBatis config.xml. Here you can see a SQL session factory builder. This class can be instantiated, used, and thrown away. There is no need to keep it around once you have created your SQL session factory. Therefore, the best scope for instances of SQL session factory builder is method scope. That is a local method variable. You can reuse the SQL session factory builder to build multiple SQL session factory instances, but it is still best not to keep it around to ensure that all of the XML parsing resources are freed up for more important things. SQL session factory. Once created, the SQL session factory should exist for the duration of your application execution. There should be little or no reason to ever dispose of it or recreate it. It's a best practice to not rebuild the SQL session factory multiple times in an application run. Doing so should be considered a bad smell. Therefore, the best scope of SQL session factory is application scope. This can be achieved a number of ways. The simplest is to use a singleton pattern or static singleton pattern. SQL session. Each thread should have its own instance of SQL session. Instances of SQL sessions are not to be shared and are not thread safe. Therefore, the best scope is request or method scope. Never keep references to a SQL session instance in a static field or even an instance field of a class. Never keep references to a SQL session in any sort of managed scope, such as HTTP session of the servlet framework. If you are using a web framework of any sort, consider the SQL session to follow a similar scope to that of an HTTP request. In other words, upon receiving an HTTP request, you can open a SQL session, then upon returning the response, you can close it. Closing the session is very important. You should always ensure that it's closed within a finally block. Following is a standard pattern for ensuring that SQL sessions are closed. Try open bracket SQL session equal SQL session factory dot open session open bracket close bracket open curly bracket, and do the work and close curly bracket. Using this pattern throughout your code will config.xml file is connected to SQL session factory builder. SQL session factory builder is connected to SQL session factory. SQL session factory is connected to SQL session, and SQL session is connected to SQL mapper. Now this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for watching it.